Welcome to Voices of the Case. In this episode, we want to talk to you about the Manson case. The very name conjures a darkness, a chilling enigma that still, well, lingers in our collective memory. We're about to plunge into the abyss of the Manson family, a group that morphed from a seemingly unconventional commune in late 1960s California.
Yeah, into something truly horrifying. A symbol of crime and cult influence, really.
All under the spellbinding, sinister direction of Charles Manson.
Their notoriety, as most people know, hit its terrifying peak with the brutal murders of Sharon Tate and others in August of '69.
It's just the scale of it.
What's truly unsettling is the sheer number of individuals drawn into Manson's orbit. At its height, this so-called family comprised around, 100 souls?
100 people, wow.
They existed completely outside the norms of society, and their lives were just saturated by mind-altering substances like benzodrine and LSD.
Creating a fertile ground for manipulation, you'd think?
Absolutely.
And here's a detail that adds another layer to this already disturbing picture.
Yeah.
Forget the image of hardened criminals, right?
Totally. The vast majority of Manson's followers were young women. Many from seemingly stable, middle-class backgrounds.
Which is so counterintuitive.
It is. Initially, they were lured by the promises of the burgeoning hippie culture, the allure of communal living.
But something twisted within that environment.
Definitely. Fueled by Manson's insidious ideology, turning these young seekers down a path toward, unspeakable violence.
So our aim in this deep dive is to really dissect this chilling phenomenon.
Right. We'll explore the genesis of the Manson family, the horrific crimes they perpetrated, and the subsequent legal battles that just gripped the world.
And we'll do that by carefully examining the available information, trying to understand how such darkness could take root.
Exactly.
Okay, let's begin at the beginning then. Tracing the formation of this group. Charles Manson's own history is, it's a shadowy prelude to the horrors that followed.
Including significant stretches spent behind bars.
And it was during one of those stints at McNeil Island, I believe.
That's right. He received guitar lessons from none other than the infamous bank robber Alvin Karpis.
Can you even imagine that? The conversations, the strange exchange between a future cult leader and a seasoned criminal.
It's a detail that speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the unusual influences shaping Manson's early life.
So upon his release in 1967, he gravitated towards the counterculture scene in San Francisco.
Yeah, Berkeley specifically. He got an apartment there through a prison contact right as the Summer of Love was kicking off.
Perfect timing for him, in a way.
In a dark way, yes. He was living pretty transiently and soon met Mary Brunner, a 23-year-old library assistant at UC Berkeley.
And he moved in with her.
He did, and their small apartment quickly became a magnet for other women, soon housing around 18 of them, apparently.
18? In one small apartment?
Yeah, reportedly against Brunner's initial wishes sometimes. But this concentration of, impressionable individuals, that became the nucleus of the Manson family.
So the Summer of Love, with its atmosphere of freedom and experimentation, it was the perfect stage for Manson to become this guru figure.
He seemed to tap right into the prevailing currents, the hippie movement, music festivals, the search for alternative living.
And it wasn't long before he had his core group of devoted followers.
The Manson family, as they started being called. And like we said, overwhelmingly female in those early days.
What do you think it was about that moment, that culture, that made these young women so susceptible?
That's a really crucial question. I mean, the late 60s were a time of huge social upheaval, questioning authority.
Right.
A lot of young people felt disillusioned. They were searching for alternative meaning, for community. Manson he exploited that yearning.
How?
Well, he presented himself as this charismatic outsider with profound insights. His initial approach often involved what people call love bombing.
Love bombing.
Yeah, showering potential recruits with attention, affection, a sense of belonging, creating this powerful emotional bond that he'd later twist and manipulate.
And before that summer even ended, Manson and 8 or 9 followers?
About that, yeah. They got this old school bus, customized it, painted, carpets, cushions, the whole hippie symbol thing.
Right.
And they started this nomadic journey, north, then south, through LA, Mexico, the Southwest, eventually circling back to the LA area.
Finding temporary spots in Topanga, Malibu, Venice Beach.
Exactly. And this constant movement, this detachment from normal society, it must have just solidified their dependence on Manson and the group.
Made them more isolated.
Absolutely. Cut them off from old lives, support systems, made them increasingly reliant on Manson for everything guidance, validation.
And during this early period, Mary Brunner became pregnant.
Yes. In 1967, in April 68, she gave birth to a son, Valentine Michael. They called him Pooh Bear.
It's such a strange juxtaposition, isn't it? This seemingly innocent new life within this increasingly weird community.
All under Manson's watchful eye. It's deeply unsettling.
And adding to the contradictions, the fact that Manson apparently made a positive impression on some unexpected people.
Like Al Lewis, Grandpa Munster.
Exactly. He apparently trusted Manson with his kids a couple of times, called him a good guy when I met him.
It's just bizarre. How do you square that with the monster we know?
What do you think accounts for that?
It just highlights Manson's manipulation, I think. He showed different faces to different people, masked the darkness, especially early on.
Before his control was absolute.
Right. To someone like Al Lewis, maybe he just seemed like this harmless, maybe even charming counterculture guy. That duality was key.
And then there's the Dennis Wilson connection, the Beach Boy. That whole story is
He
wild.
really is. Wilson picks up 2 hitchhiking girls.
Manson followers, turns out.
And they just won't stop talking about Charlie Manson, the wizard. Wilson's curiosity is piqued, obviously.
So what happened next?
According to Wilson, he gets home to Malibu late one night, like 3 a.m. after recording, and there's this short, bearded guy in his driveway. Manson.
Just waiting for him. Creepy.
Very. Wilson asks, "Are you gonna hurt me?" And Manson apparently replies, "Do you think I'm here to hurt you, brother?" Then kneels and kisses Wilson's shoes.
Kisses shoes.
Yeah, apparently one of Manson's ways of establishing this weird kind of dominance. Then Wilson goes inside and finds like a dozen strangers, mostly women, just there, living in his house.
They just moved in.
Seems like it, without invitation.
And the music connection. Manson claimed they recorded together.
He did. Claim they laid down about 10 tracks at Dennis's brother Brian's studio. The Beach Boys have mostly downplayed it. But Stephen Desper, an engineer who worked closely with them, he said the material exists, called Manson's music quite good, acknowledged his musical talent.
It's fascinating and kind of eerie.
Yeah.
Manson using music as another tool for influence.
It raises questions about charisma, doesn't it? Maybe he had some genuine artistic ability that added to his allure, especially in that music scene.
But that living arrangement at Wilson's couldn't last.
No. By August 68, Wilson's manager had had enough, told the family to leave.
So where do they go?
That led them to Spahn Ranch, this somewhat isolated old movie ranch where they shot westerns. A much more secluded spot for the group.
And life at Spahn Ranch.
Yeah.
It sounds like it got even darker.
Definitely more sinister, more exploitative. Family members did chores, sure, but Manson set up this deeply disturbing system.
The thing with George Spahn.
Yeah. He instructed the women, including Lynette Frum, Squeaky, to have sexual relations with the elderly, nearly blind owner, George Spahn, instead of paying rent.
Just blatant exploitation, degradation as control.
It really highlights the core of Manson's leadership, doesn't it? And it was at Spahn Ranch that Charles Tex Watson joined.
Tex Watson, he becomes a key figure later.
Huge. He'd left college in Texas, moved to California. He seemed particularly susceptible to Manson's ideology and became crucial in carrying out the darker plans.
And this is around the time the Helter Skelter idea starts taking hold.
Yes. This absolutely deranged interpretation of race relations in America. Manson got obsessed with the Beatles' White Album.
He thought it contained prophecies
Of an impending apocalyptic race war between blacks and whites, and in his twisted view, he and the family were meant to ignite it.
And Helter Skelter, the song title, ended up scrawled in blood at the crime scenes. Chilling.
Utterly chilling. He visited someone in Topanga who played the White Album for him, and he just fixated on it.
Interpreting lyrics as coded messages for him.
Exactly. Messages outlining how to start this race war. He thought the Beatles weren't just musicians, but prophets confirming his vision. It totally fed his messianic complex.
So by early '69, they move again.
Right, to a canary yellow house in Canoga Park near Spahn Ranch. Manson called it the Yellow Submarine.
Another Beatles reference. He thought it was a hidden sanctuary for the apocalypse.
That seems to be the idea. And it was there, in the Yellow Submarine, that his plan to trigger Helter Skelter really took shape.
Now,
He envisioned the family making their own album, songs as subtly subversive as the Beatles, that would act as the catalyst for the uprising.
did he actually try to get a record deal?
They were preparing for Terry Melcher, Dennis Wilson's friend and a producer, to visit. Cleaned the house, cooked, waited, but Melcher never showed up.
That rejection. Maybe that pushed him further.
Quite possibly. Fueled his resentment, solidified that apocalyptic view.
And then comes that unsettling visit to 150 Cielo Drive, March 69.
Yeah, Manson goes there uninvited. He knew it as Terry Melcher's old place.
But Melcher wasn't there anymore.
No, the property owner was Rudy Altobelli, and the tenants were Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski.
What was Manson trying to do? Just find Melcher?
Ostensibly, yeah. He thought Melcher owed him, promised him a record deal, then rejected him. When he got there, he ran into Shiro Hatami, a photographer, friend of Tate's.
What happened?
Manson asked for Melcher. Hatami said he didn't know him. Polanski lived there now. Manson left, but Hatami was suspicious, followed him out.
And Sharon Tate saw him.
She appeared at the door just then. Hatami explained, and they both watched Manson walk away. Rudy Altobelli also saw him from the guest house, told him Melcher was gone, told him to leave.
Just a seemingly minor encounter. But that address would become infamous.
Tragically infamous.
Things really started to escalate in July 69, didn't they? With Bernard Crowe.
Yeah, lots of Papa Crowe. Manson needed money, sent Tex Watson to basically con Crowe in a drug deal.
But it backfired.
Crowe threatened everyone at Spawn Ranch, so Manson decided to handle it himself.
He shot him.
On July 1st, at Crowe's apartment in Hollywood. Crowe actually survived, but Manson thought he'd killed him.
And he thought Crowe was a Black Panther.
Mistakenly, yes.
Yeah.
Probably based on some unrelated news report. This convinced Manson the Panthers would retaliate against the family.
So he went back to Spawn Ranch, all paranoid.
Totally. Started defensive measures, nighttime patrols, armed guards, just pushed the group further into their isolated, paranoid world.
And Manson got arrested for the shooting.
Briefly, yeah, but Gary Hinman bailed him out.
Gary Hinman. Which leads us to the next tragedy.
The first outright murder connected to the family core, yes. Late July 69. Manson sends Bobby Beausoleil, Mary Brunner, Susan Atkins to Hinman's place.
Why? What did they want?
Manson thought Hinman had inherited money they could get. Beausoleil later claimed it was about bad mescaline Hinman sold them. Either way,
It turned violent.
they held Hinman hostage for 2 days. Manson himself showed up at one point, slashed Hinman's ear with a knife.
Just brutal.
And ultimately, under Manson's orders, Bobby Beausoleil stabbed Hinman to death.
And the writing on the wall.
Political piggy, and a panther paw print scrawled in Hinman's blood. A twisted attempt to frame the Black Panthers, push the Helter Skelter narrative.
And Beausoleil got caught soon after.
August 6th, driving Hinman's car, murder weapon still inside.
Just 2 days later, the horror ramps up unimaginably.
August 8th, Manson tells the family at Spawn Ranch, now is the time for a Helter Skelter.
And he gives the order for Cielo Drive.
He orders Tex Watson to take Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel to that house where Melcher used to live, 150 Cielo Drive.
With the instruction to
Totally destroy everyone in it as horribly as you can. And he told the women, follow Tex's every command. Just chillingly calculated.
And who was at the house that night?
Sharon Tate, 8 months pregnant. Her friend Jay Sebring, the celebrity hairstylist. Wojciech Frykowski, screenwriter friend of Polanski's. And Frykowski's girlfriend, Abigail Folger, the coffee heiress.
Roman Polanski was away.
In London, working. Sharon had just gotten back.
So the family members arrive. What happens first?
They get to the gate. Watson climbs a pole, cuts the phone line around midnight, August 9th. Isolates them.
He knew the layout.
He'd been there at least once before. He climbed over a wall, got into the garden. The women followed over a fence carrying knives and clean clothes. Watson had a revolver and rope.
And then Stephen Perrin arrived.
Tragically, 18 years old, just visiting the caretaker, leaving the guest house. His car comes up the driveway right as they're there.
What did Watson do?
Approached the car. Parent rolled down the window. Watson slashed his hand, then shot him 4 times in the chest when he tried to escape. Killed him instantly.
And they just pushed his car out of sight.
Pushed it up the driveway to hide it. Chillingly efficient.
Okay, so they're inside the grounds. How did they get into the house itself?
Watson found an unlocked window after removing a screen. He told Linda Kasabian to stay outside as a lookout near the gate near Parent's car. She never went inside.
She became a witness.
A horrified witness. Watson opened the front door for Atkins and Krenwinkel.
Who did they find first?
Wojciech Frykowski, asleep on a sofa. Watson pointed the gun right at his face as he woke up.
Terrifying.
Atkins then bound Frykowski's hands with a towel. She moved through the house, found Abigail Folger reading in bed, then found Tate and Sebring talking in another room.
Watson ordered them all brought to the living room.
Yes. Atkins and Krenwinkel rounded them up. Folger apparently smiled at Atkins initially, thinking she was a guest. That must have faded fast.
So they're all in the living room.
Watson orders them face down. Sebring pleads for them to consider Tate's pregnancy. They let her sit up.
But then Sebring cried something.
He lunged at Watson, trying to disarm him. Watson shot him in the torso. He collapsed. Then Watson just brutally kicked his face, breaking bones.
Awful. Did they rob them?
Watson demanded money. Abigail Folger handed over $70. Then Watson tied them all up, the women, the injured Sebring, threw a rope over a beam.
And hung Atkins from it. What?
It's a bizarre detail.
Yeah.
Then he told Atkins to kill Frykowski.
But Frykowski fought back.
He did. As Atkins approached, he broke free somehow, grabbed her hair, hit her. They struggled. Atkins stabbed him multiple times. The knife fell, got stuck in the sofa.
Did Watson intervene?
He shot Frykowski again, then hit him so hard with the gun butt that he broke part of the revolver. But Frykowski was still alive.
Incredible resilience. And Abigail Folger.
She saw a chance, broke free, ran outside screaming. Krenwinkel chased her. Watson stabbed Sebring 4 more times, then ran after Folger too.
They caught her in the garden.
Yes. Together, Watson and Krenwinkel stabbed her 28 times.
28.
Meanwhile, Frykowski, unbelievably, stumbled out of the house calling for help. He reached the spot near Kasabian. Their eyes met, just for a moment. Then he collapsed.
And Watson finished him.
Went back and stabbed him another 51 times, ensuring he was dead. Abigail Folger finally died near the pool area from her injuries.
Linda Kasabian saw all this.
She was overwhelmed, ran to the car, thought about fleeing, but was just paralyzed by fear and stayed.
And Sharon Tate. Still tied to Sebring.
She tried to flee, but Atkins intercepted her. Atkins and Krenwinkel held her down while Watson stabbed her 16 times.
16.
Before they left, Susan Atkins dipped a towel in Tate's blood and wrote "pig" on the front door.
The crime scene was described as ritualistic.
It had that quality, absolutely. Pure carnage.
And the horror wasn't over. The very next night.
August 9th into 10th, the LaBianca murders. 6 family members left Spawn Ranch this time.
The 4 from Cielo Drive.
Plus Leslie Van Houten and Steve Clem Grogan. And Manson himself went along this time. He was apparently dissatisfied with how messy the Tate murders were, wanted to show them how it was done.
So they drove around looking for victims.
For hours, yeah. Considered different places, finally settled on the home of Leno LaBianca, a supermarket executive, and his wife, Rosemary. 3301 Waverly Drive.
Did they know the area?
They'd been to a party on that street the year before. Manson broke in himself first. Woke Leno on the sofa at gunpoint. Took him to the bedroom where Rosemary was sleeping. Tex Watson then covered their heads with pillowcases, tied them up with phone wire, following Manson's lead.
Then Manson left.
Yeah, but not before sending Krenwinkel and Van Houten inside with the instruction to kill the couple.
So Watson took Leno back to the living room.
And started stabbing her with a hunting knife. Paused when he heard struggles from the bedroom.
What was happening there?
Rosemary was fighting back against Krenwinkel and Van Houten, using a lamp still tied around her neck by the cord.
Watson subdued her.
Stabbed her multiple times with the same knife, then went back to the living room and finished killing Leno. 12 stab wounds total.
And then he carved.
Or carved it into Leno's abdomen after unbuttoning his pajamas.
Just gratuitous horror. And in the bedroom.
The women continued stabbing Rosemary. The autopsy found 41 stab wounds, 41.
While Watson showered. In their house.
Yes, and Krenwinkel used Leno's blood to write on the walls, "Rise, death to the pigs," and on the fridge, "Helter Skelter."
Echoing Manson's ideology again.
And she stabbed the dead Leno 14 times with a carving fork, left it in his stomach, left a butcher knife sticking out of his throat too.
Just adding layers of gore.
Unbelievable. Then they returned to Spawn Ranch.
Meanwhile, Manson, Atkins, and Kasabian had planned another murder that night.
Targeted an actor, apparently. But the plans fell through, got abandoned. The night ended with Atkins defecating on someone's steps.
A final, bizarre act of defilement.
Just senseless.
And there was another murder connected to the family at Spawn Ranch, right? Donald Shorty Shea.
Yes, a caretaker there. The exact date isn't known. His body wasn't found for years.
When did it come out?
Steve Grogan eventually cooperated with police. Manson had ordered Grogan and Bruce Davis to kill Shea.
Why?
He suspected Shea was trying to get the family evicted, maybe knew about the Tate LaBianca murders. Grogan led police to the body, buried near the ranch.
And they were convicted.
Grogan, Davis, and Manson as the mastermind. Others were suspected, but not charged.
So, the investigation. How did it all finally unravel?
It really started with Susan Atkins' arrest for the Gary Hinman murder.
And she talked.
She boasted. To his cellmate, Virginia Graham, chilling confessions about the Tate LaBianca murders, that was the key that unlocked everything.
Once her story came out, arrests followed quickly.
Swiftly. Atkins, Watson, Krenwinkel, Van Houten, all eventually tried and got life sentences for the murders.
And Linda Kasabian. The look at
She
her.
got immunity. In exchange for her crucial testimony against Manson and the others, she'd actually fled Spahn Ranch before the arrests, leaving her daughter, but got her back later.
She was brave to testify.
Incredibly brave. Barbara Hoyt, another Spahn Ranch resident, also testified against them.
What about Manson's trial? He wasn't physically present at the murders?
No, but he was tried and convicted for conspiracy as the mastermind pulling the strings.
He got the death sentence initially.
January 71, yes. But it was commuted to life when California temporarily abolished the death penalty soon after.
His trial was apparently chaotic.
Completely bizarre, disruptive behavior, turning the courtroom into a circus. But then, surprisingly, he decided to testify for an hour.
What was that like?
Prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi documented how Manson shifted personas from harmless vagrant to fiery revolutionary, master manipulator.
And some of his quotes from the trial are infamous.
Disturbingly so. Justifying his followers' actions, deflecting blame, like saying, "These children that come at you with knives, they are your children. You taught them, I didn't teach them."
Chilling deflection of responsibility.
Totally twisted.
So let's run through the fates of the key players. Manson himself.
Died in prison, 2017. Age 83. Denied parole countless times.
Tex Watson.
Still incarcerated. Became an evangelical Christian, wrote books, married, had 4 kids via conjugal visits before those were stopped.
Susan Atkins.
Died in prison, 2009. Also repeatedly denied parole.
Patricia Krenwinkel.
Still in prison. One of California's longest-serving female inmates.
Linda Kasabian.
Lived freely due to her immunity. Passed away in 2023.
What about some of the others? Sandra Good.
Served time for sending threats for Manson. Remained devoted to him.
Steve Grogan, the one who helped find Shay's body.
Got conditional release in 1985 because of that cooperation.
Bruce Davis.
Still serving life despite many parole hearings recommending release, often overturned by governors.
Leslie Van Houten.
She was eventually paroled in 2023 after decades of denials and legal fights.
Bobby Beausoleil.
Still in prison for the Hinman murder. Appeals always denied.
And Lynette Squeaky Frum.
Served time for attempting to assassinate President Gerald Ford. Released in 2009. It's quite the grim epilogue, isn't it? A disturbing case study in manipulation and depravity.
The story of the Manson family.
Yeah.
The crimes. They just continue to haunt our understanding of the late 60s, the darker side of that era.
A chilling testament to the seductive power of a charismatic leader.
And the terrifying potential for seemingly ordinary people to commit unspeakable acts under that kind of influence.
What remains deeply unsettling, even now, is how it all came together. The social anxiety, the disillusionment, the vulnerability of people searching for belonging.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it?
An enduring reminder of the fragility of the human mind and the catastrophic consequences of unchecked influence.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Case. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time.